Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome everyone. We are going to continue today, inshallah, with our local Shaykh Mansoor Malik, who will take us, give us the next iteration of a theme that he has been talking to us about over the last 2 or 3 sessions, which is the importance of education, Ramadan and the importance of education. And after laying the groundwork, inshallah, we're going to have Mansoor take us through some of the practicalities, inshallah, today. Of this very important topic. So without any further ado, Mansoor, please go ahead. And as ever, please, everyone, do participate and send any questions through, inshallah. We can address them at the end.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome everyone to our Ramadan reminder. In today's session, we're going to explore just some of the, in many respects, far simpler aspects of what we've been talking about so far. So the practicalities of how to weave in learning into our lifestyles. And perhaps some of this is already encoded in what you do, which is great, and it will be an opportunity really to improve one's situation. I can't emphasize enough how much what we've spoken about previously in the first 2 sessions is really the foundation for everything here. If one has not fully internalized this idea that the human being is a unique form of creation, if one hasn't really internalized this idea that the human being encapsulates Asma al-Husna, the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the created realm, if one hasn't internalized these sorts of ideas, then the enterprise of learning is not going to really be something that you consider to be particularly valuable. You're not going to really see its centrality to your objective as a human being in this world. And it's not going to resonate at the level at which it needs to resonate. This is often why people fall in and out of processes of learning. Once you understand that it's something which is essential and fundamental to who we are as human beings, in the nature in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to worship Him upon a state of knowledge and upon a state of exemplifying His attributes. And these are sentient attributes of cognition and sentience. Then we understand that the role that cognition and sentience plays in our created capacities as human beings becomes central for us. Being aware, having awareness, consciousness. Allah is Al-Alim, Allah is knowing entity, so it's not an inanimate entity like the deism of certain religious traditions, or the prime mover kind of conception that Aristotle had, for example. So we don't worship an inanimate God. So we worship a deity who is all-knowing and all-hearing and all-seeing. This is sentience. We represent this and the fullness of these attributes in a human form, and so we need to have this idea resonate heavily within us. When it does, then knowledge becomes something which we have no form or fashion by which we can escape its enterprise. We need to take hold of this. This is the way that we come to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then serve Him and worship Him in the manner that's demanded of us as human beings. And exemplified most fully in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in terms of the practicalities now moving in that direction, in a sense it's easier, it's more simpler. We can just look at what needs to be done. But then really the challenge shifts. So the challenge has been conceptual, now the challenge becomes practical. Like, we need to do these things. And in order to do them, changes in one's lifestyle are going to become necessary for many people. There's no way in the limited capacities that we have as human beings that we can do everything and anything. So I just want to present an outline and just to ward off initial thoughts that people have. It's an outline which will work for most people, but it's not going to work for everyone. And in a sense, it's a recipe for learning. Recipes are things that you have to play around with and you have to make work according to what you have in the cupboard, for example, or how you prefer something to taste. So I'm going to keep it quite simple in that respect. So in reality, this enterprise boils down to, I would say, 3 components. And I just want you to think in terms of your week. Think of Monday being the first day of the week, Sunday being the last day of the week. We're just going to work through and have a look at what people should be doing. And it's, like I said, a model, a recipe. And you can use it as a benchmark to think about, okay, do I do this? And this is purposely, just to reiterate the point from yesterday, this is not about scholarship. I'm not telling you here what ulama do. What ulama do is something of a completely different realm and level. I'm just asking you as committed Muslims, as people who have, as I mentioned yesterday, gone through at least 12 years of formal full-time education, and therefore placed upon your necks a burden, in a sense, whether you knew it or not at the time, you placed upon your necks a burden that says, I'm capable of this. And it's not merely theoretical capability, it's actual capability, because we've done it. And people have gone to schools and gone through these whole programs. So that commensurability that we were speaking about yesterday, just to remind people that we need comparability. If we give so much to the world, then we have to ask, what have we given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it comparable? So let's keep it simple. Monday to Friday, people tend to work Monday to Friday. So the obligations can be quite small. In reality, what I think most people should be doing Monday to Friday is to have 2 aspects to their routine. Firstly is the centrality of Al-Quran, the centrality of God's speech in terms of being a guide and a form of reference on a day-to-day basis. So people should be waking up in the morning, let's say around 6 a.m., something like this, 6, 7. And when you wake up to pray Fajr, that you should be incorporating Quran into this time. I'm hoping many people do this. This used to be the norm, such that it would be unheard of, or almost unheard of, for somebody not to be doing this. Nowadays, we can't predict for how things have changed. And I say the norm, I mean just one generation earlier. So my parents' generation, till this day, my mother, my father, everyone that I know, uncles, aunties, everyone's in the morning, you wake up, you pray Fajr, you read Quran. If you've lost that, then you've lost something fundamental. Because your parents were not merely the first people to originate this idea. This is something that has been long-standing for 1400 years. If we've lost this, then actually we've lost something which is paradigmatic. And we need to reclaim it as a fundamental feature of our day-to-day life. So you wake up, you pray Fajr, to include Quran in that. Roughly half an hour at least. Half an hour to 45 minutes in the morning. It should be non-negotiable. Now the shift really that we need to make here, however, is not to simply recite and read Quran with lack of understanding. Okay, now there's long-term remedies for that, but I'm not focused on the long-term remedies today. It's the immediate remedy. So the immediate remedy is very simple. That you do not sit there and only or simply open the Mus'haf and read for half an hour, 40 minutes, but you divide that into 2 portions. Come around this side. Divide it into 2 portions so that you recite a portion and then you go through the translation of that portion. And so this is going to foist certain questions on you. What's a good translation to use? How to engage with it? We can deal with all these eventualities another time. The long and the short of it for today is simply that you can quite easily get some advice in terms of a decent translation of the Quran, which is sensible for you and your needs, and then you can incorporate that into your morning routine. Recite some Quran, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, because it'll take longer to recite the Arabic, and then 10, 15 minutes to go through the translation of what you recited. Slowly, carefully, not like you're reading a fiction novel or something like this, just getting through it, but trying to ponder on the ayat that you've been reading. Now, the Quran is something by its nature which is cyclical. Some of our great scholars said that if you come to the Quran and you find in it only the same message, then there's something stunted in you. This is the shortcoming in you. The Quran is something which is cyclical in its nature. What that means is that every time you come to the Quran, that you should find in it something, a discovery that you did not find in it previously, a wisdom that you did not locate in it previously, a form of understanding that did not fall upon you the previous time that you read it. Now, this is all well and good to say this, and it's all well and good for people to say subhanallah, but how does this happen? Happens through knowledge. To link it back. Well, if you're the same human being and you've learned nothing new and you've obtained no greater wisdom about the world, when you come to the Quran, it's going to say the same thing to you that it said to you this previous time that you read it. Okay, so just to tie in some of the learning that we've been trying to go through here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unlocks and unveils the Quran according to the commitments that you put in terms of expanding your horizons. As you expand your horizons, as you come to the Quran with new experiences, then you will take greater wisdom from it. So this is the morning, and this should also be replicated in the evening, typically between the prayer of Maghrib and Isha. So if you're male, for example, the habit should be that you attend the masjid for your Maghrib prayer. And what used to be the normal habit is that people would maintain, we can call it loosely, maintain seclusion in the masjid between the period of Maghrib and Isha, because at most it's an hour, hour and a half. And so in that time, after you prayed your Maghrib, you pray your Sunnah prayers, you have time sufficient there to read some Quran, again with the translation, and then the time of Isha will come. So this is the way that you can work it into your general habit. At home, again, it used to be the habit that people used to, obviously space has always been a privilege in people's homes. So I'm not going to suggest that people used to have a niche or a particular area that used to remain at all times an area of prayer, but they used to be, as it is today, a place where people typically pray in the home rather than just wherever you want. And so kind of making that an area where between Maghrib and Isha, you can also achieve the same goal. So this is the first of the habits. These are the first of the practicalities in terms of how to bring knowledge into our daily lives. The Quran is the centrality. It's a central form of knowledge. It's in fact an unlocking of the other forms of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has integrated and encoded into his cosmos. So to have it there in the morning and have it in the evening, and to emphasize to have it in such a way that we are engaging with its meaning as well as its recitation, is the first thing that you can be checking yourself against. Do I do this? Have I got this locked down? How am I going to do this if it isn't currently my norm? Okay. The second thing then on your Monday to Fridays is to alter a habit which has become it's a very modern habit. To call it a habit is a bit of an overstatement. It's a pathology. It's a pathology of the modern condition, which is that we are glued to our devices through the day, but particularly as we go to bed. Whether it's a TV screen, whether it's a phone, something like this. The research is fairly incontrovertible. This destroys your sleep routine. This destroys your ability to sleep in a healthy way. You can go and research the evidence on this and the various studies that have been done. So you should be detoxing anyway. Whether you are pursuing knowledge or not, you should be not staring at a screen for the last roughly 2 hours before you go to bed. Okay, well, that's fine. If you're attending Maghrib and then you're coming home and spend a little time with the family, now you should be carving out a minimum of 45 minutes as your reading time before you go to sleep. Yeah, many people struggle to go to sleep. Now you've got two things in one go. Number one, you got rid of the blue light. Number two, you've done the activity that most easily puts people to sleep, which is reading. So you've combined the two best ingredients, antidotes that you have to having sleeplessness and a bad routine. So before you go to bed, 45 minutes should be your structured reading habit every single day. Give or take the odd day here or there, fine. Something happens, you get invited to a meal around someone's house. None of this is a problem. This is not this does not contradict habit formation. People think a habit means it's non-negotiable every single day. No, it means that 80%, 90%, you can take a register of attendance and you can see I'm hitting 80, 90% comfortably. Then you have a habit here, right? So this should be your reading habit, and maybe next week I'll be able to go into explaining a little bit about what that habit should be and what to read and these sorts of questions. But get started. You're not gonna read anything bad, right? You got all sorts of books that have been floating around on your bookshelf, gathering dust for many years. Pick up any one of them. Just start getting the habit going. There's some area or some subject area you have interest in, go to library or bookshop and buy something on that topic and just start reading. It'll keep you going for the next couple of months at least. And in that time, you can ask all the questions you want about how to structure your reading habits. We can come to that. So this is Monday to Friday. 2 of the 3 things that you should have. It's very simple. There's only 3 things. We've already covered 2 of them, and they have not yet impacted your life in any heavy way, really, have they? Everything just 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes between Maghrib and Isha, 45 minutes reading in the evening. This is it. Done. Okay. Then comes the other dimension, the third component, which is to pick up the formal end of your study, to study the kind of structured learning which we typically associate with the study of Islam. sitting with scholars, learning particular sciences, etc., etc., all of that dimension. Okay, this is the one that might test you the most. So you're going to carve out Sunday. Okay, fine. You got used to that, your habit of just having busy week. I work Monday to Friday. I've earned my weekend. You've earned nothing. People for the whole of human history have lived for the sake of survival. Today, because you have been born into the privilege of modernity, which is carved out for you, this strange economics of earning a livelihood in such ways that we can't really go into, but they've kind of it's this balancing act which the state kind of privileges and allows you to have these couple of days off so you can serve the state for the other 5 days in the week. This is all just this is all part of the modern pathology. So we don't come to life with this kind of understanding. I'll give you a different example of it that hopefully drive the message home as well. Today you're probably sitting there like, it's almost like an expectation or a norm for me that I have like 3-4 weeks holiday in the summer. Family, we go on holiday. People never used to go on holiday. People used to go on holidays. This is just 1 or 2 generations of human beings. We've been here for maybe 100,000, 200,000 years on this earth. Since when have people been, as families, going on holidays to here or there? Even my parents' generation, nobody went on holiday. You went to see your relatives in Pakistan for 4 weeks. That was not a holiday. That's an obligation. Now it's a norm, right? I need to be able to go here and there. No, if you have the privilege, I'm not saying you don't do it or you can't do it or it's haram. What I'm saying is recognize it for what it is. When you recognize things for what they are, then you're not going to treat them the same way. So it's the same idea. Don't treat Saturday or Sunday as something that you have a right over. No, it's something that you can carve out from it what you're able to of some relaxation and of some other recreations, etc. But it's not something that is an automatic right conferred onto you. And if someone comes and says to you, you have to learn your religion, you say, I'd sacrifice many things before I give up a Sunday to do anything other than what I want to do. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, I've given the rationale. I've tried my best. The point is what? Carve out a Sunday. Wake up 8 in the morning and give yourself, let's say, 8 till 3. 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. This is my study day. I'm sitting here, and in this time, I'm going to begin a journey with Arabic. I'm going to begin a journey with studying the ulum, the sciences of Islam. I'm going to attend some classes with ulama, sit at their feet, build that relationship with scholars, begin to unpack my life, begin to understand what changes I want to make. And this is, you're done. You do these 3 things in your life, you follow them through for about 5 years, you will see that you're a completely different human being. But this, like I said at the beginning, the challenge now is what? The challenge is that you have to think about making these changes. And this is not just perennial wisdom, this is modern wisdom as well. I've been speaking a lot about some of the kind of modern dimensions of mindset, modern dimensions of willpower. It's the same advice that's coming through, just with the added leverage of modern research. And the results are the same, that you cannot exercise willpower if you are overloaded. So most of you who are sitting there thinking, why am I not doing this already? I guarantee you for 90% of you, the answer is that you have an overloaded life. If you look at it, you have too many things going on. And if you meet Tullab al-Ilm, you meet Shuyukh, they are complete opposite. They take very little responsibilities on, because what it affords them cognitively and in terms of time is the ability to do what's called, again, to borrow the modern language, deep work. You cannot, who's the author of that book, Deep Work? One of you will probably have read it. But there's a book called Deep Work. Go and Google it. Is it coming to you? If it comes to you, okay. But what's the point here? The point here is that how do people do this? How do people focus in? How do people go and cure diseases and work on all sorts of innovative technology? They do deep work. How are they able to do it? Because they don't have these rich lives that you guys want. They don't have this. Even people that you might look up to, if you're a modernist, you're Elon Musk and people like this. What do? They wake up and do the same thing every day. They're not out there spreading themselves thin with 20 different hobbies and blah, blah, blah. So we got to move out of a certain bourgeois kind of modern middle class mindset as well, where we try to pack our lives full of all of these things that our parents didn't give us, or particularly if we come from immigrant backgrounds. No, this is the reality. We've got to look at things as they are, right? And address these realities. Then we're going to open up for ourselves a lot of time that we can then reorient towards what we need to reorient it towards. So now, yes, I can go through the details of all of these things, but we only have about 10 minutes, so let's unpack what we can in that time. Okay. The reading side, Monday to Friday, and obviously Saturday and Sunday as well. It's just 45 minutes in the evening, 7 days a week. Why the reading? Why am I keep, I've been focusing on the word keep on dropping it again and again. The reality is many people don't begin there, and this is also one of the errors in which why people cannot stick to the ulum, the sciences. People go straight in, I want to learn Arabic, I want to sit with scholars, I want to study fiqh, usul al-fiqh, hadith, nobody lasts really. Nobody lasts. Why? Because these sciences, in many respects, for people are very dry sciences. It's a reality. It's like me saying to you, go to university and study some maths. And then do a big degree and take some maths modules and take some psychology modules. What's the percentage chance that you're really going to have much of an interest innately in any of those subjects? Zero. You're not going to have innate interest in most things. Interest needs to be generated and built. And most of that interest is built in people as a result of understanding its value, understanding its history, understanding its impact. This is how we think about it. All the things you value, really, you come to value them because you came to realize, someone taught you, this is really impactful. Look how much it really changes your life. You come to see its efficacy, etc., etc. It's all of that wider contextual stage setting which makes knowledge impactful and powerful for you, and then you commit yourself to that enterprise. This is why nobody learns Arabic, because people come to learn Arabic and you ask them, this is the first question I always ask anyone that comes to learn Arabic, why do you want to learn Arabic? And the answers are 95% of the time just redundant answers that lack any value whatsoever. This is the one answer that 9 out of 10 people give me, because I want to understand the Quran better. This is not an answer. There's no depth, there's no substance in that answer. How? Because just retort with a simple question. How is Arabic going to make you understand the Quran better? And then you just blank face, like, I just thought it was obvious. Like, you learn Arabic, you understand the Quran better. No? You don't understand Allah better, you don't understand the Quran better just by picking up the tongue. If that was the case, the whole of the Arab world would be this beacon of guidance that we would see, right? Everywhere from Morocco, in the Maghrib, all the way to Iraq in the east, where Arabic is the dominant language. And don't get it fooled. There's enough proximity between modern Arabic and classical Arabic that these people, when they pick up and read the Book of Allah, they understand the words at least at that level that you're going to understand it for the first 5 years of your Arabic journey. Do you understand? You start thinking properly, you realize there's so much fallacy in your thinking, in fundamental issues. So you don't come to Arabic and stick with it. Do you know why I stick with Arabic? Because my imagination of the Islamic tradition is so broad that the avenues to which Arabic is a resource is huge. I want to understand tasawwuf, I want to understand fiqh, I want to understand seerah, I want to understand the Quran, I want to be able to open up someone's book of tafsir, I want to be able to understand Islamic philosophy. All of these things, now you understand Arabic has become a commodity that I need for all of these different avenues. You come with one thing, I want to understand the Book of Allah, and you don't even know how Arabic is going to do that for you. No wonder you 3 months, 6 months into your journey, you're still opening the Quran and you're like, I still can't really understand anything, and it's not doing anything for me. Like, I'm not going anywhere with it. So it's just to shine a light, to give you an example of why these things fail, but really to explain the point of why reading is so important, why it's more important, I believe, at the outset than all of the ulum. Don't go and study, don't join hadith classes and this class, don't do any of that. Do your fardul ain, find a scholar with which you're studying your basic obligations, learning your basic aqidah, learning your basic fiqh, learning your basic tazkiyah, so that no one can look at you and say, this is someone who's fallen short in their obligations. And then give 80% of the rest of your learning time to reading, read widely, read Islamic history, read Islamic philosophy, read about the origins and evolution of hadith, read about the origins and evolution of Islamic law, read about the seerah and political history in Islam. Read all of these things widely until it inspires you, until you're seriously inspired by this legacy, this 1400-year legacy. Then you're going to say, I want to study the ulum, because now you understand that legacy was created and sustained by Muslim scholarship. Now you're going to understand it, you're going to understand its value, you're going to really want to get into that journey, and you're going to stick with that journey, and you're going to have so many points of conceptual reference in the sciences that you're now studying, these dry sciences, these technical sciences, these methodological sciences, you're going to have so many points of reference conceptually because of your wider reading. This is the way that it works, to give you guys a bit of an understanding. So read. And I'm not just talking about reading hadith and usul and reading the history of these things. Read psychology, read economics, read evolutionary biology, read neuroscience, read physics, read mathematics, read all of these things. All of these things are going to build the conceptual currency that is going to really make you interested in your religion. Because you're going to want to then understand, well, how does Islam relate to quantum physics? How does Islam relate to evolution? How does Islam relate to the origins of speech and linguistic development in human beings? How does Islam relate to political philosophy? How does Islam relate to revolutionary enterprises? How does Islam relate to technology and innovation? Do you understand? When you have all of those ideas floating around in your head, how can you not but want to study Islam? Because you're going to want answers to all of these questions. But if you just say, like, I want my life to be better. I want to be a better Muslim. I don't know what that means. Now people say I need to study. This is where people are at. It's the reality. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand. So then you'll be on this journey. Get that reading going. Get the Quran on a day-to-day basis. Build that relationship. And then on the weekend, as I said, carve out a Sunday, 8 to 3, 6, 7 hours. In that time, you can. The important societal dimension, I really haven't had time to focus in on here, but this is going to be very important. You're not going to sustain these things on your own until you're about 3 years into the enterprise. The sort of people that I've met, there's very few people, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100, somebody who's just personally committed to, very studious. They love to study. They'll just do it anyway. Majority of people, you will not sustain it well unless you make it a societal enterprise. So the book reading becomes what? Book clubs. Book reading, it evolves into what? Book clubs. I have like 3, at least 4 book clubs in my life. I can't find the time to read that much. I struggle through it, but the book clubs are so important in the cross-fertilization of the ideas, bringing everything together, allowing people to improve their understanding, ask questions, crystallize their questions, be able to take those questions to people of knowledge. All of this happens through that kind of reading room, book club environment. Right? And then what you do on the Sunday, I really haven't had time to go through it today, but I'll give you some examples next week. I'll give you 3 or 4 examples, practical examples. There's this institution. I'll leave you with this because we've got 2 minutes literally. With this point, back in the year 2000, roughly, when I first decided, right, I want to study, there was nowhere. There was nowhere. You had to go. I had to either go in the UK, go up to Birmingham, Dewsbury, go up somewhere like that, join some program where the main language is in Urdu. So relearn my Urdu better first, then learn the Arabic through the Urdu, and then from that, go on and do an Alamiya program. Or you go abroad. You go Egypt, you go Syria, you go Yemen, you go Jordan, you go somewhere else, and then you go and you enter into a program of learning. And these things were expensive. You can't just do them. If it's in the UK, 3,000-4,000 pounds, well, okay, fine for me now. But when I was an 18, 19-year-old, who's going to give me 3,000-4,000 pounds to go and study each year of an Alamiya program? Who's going to give me 5,000-6,000 pounds to buy a plane ticket and go and spend a year in Syria or somewhere? It doesn't work that way, right? My point, as we'll come to it next week, I'll give you the examples. Now this stuff is free and it's on your doorstep and you don't even need to leave your home. And I'm not talking about classes. I'm not talking about YouTube classes or individual subject classes. Whole Alamiya programs, whole 6-7 year programs have been created and are available for you to go and just sit in your home with a cup of tea and you don't have to go anywhere and you can go through a whole program. I'm not joking here. 6-7 year Alamiya full scholarship programs are there and they exist. And you know what the problem is? If I ask people in the room, how many of you can tell me which ones these are and which ones I'm talking about? I know them. I don't even need to know them. I've done that study. I know. Why do you not know this? Why do you not know which courses I'm talking about? You have to ask yourself, right? Because this is the problem. Everything is there. It's at your footsteps. It's at your feet, and we don't even know that they exist, right? So we've got to figure these things out. Inshallah, next week that will be the objective, to lay out before you some of the examples of these programs that people have dedicated so much time and effort and money and resources into creating because they saw this problem and they realized we're going to solve this for people. So now we'll become aware of them, and then it's your responsibility to go and plug yourself into these sorts of things. That's everything from me, inshallah. We don't have any questions that I can see in the comments there. Niamul, anything from you that you want to add?
No, Jazakallah Mansoor. I'm going to wait for a minute or so whilst people think of anything to come up with question wise. It's a really interesting start to, again, the practical aspect of your theme. I suppose my question was in terms of I think it was Cal Newport, by the way. I think it was Cal
Yes,
Newport.
Cal Newport, deep work. Yeah.
He's given that you've gone through all this literature, in terms of what you said before as regards prioritizing time, ensuring that we go deep with our time into certain things and cordoning time off. Are there, when you've gone through this with other people before, Mansoor, I wonder, are there common blockages when people need a diagnosis from you as to why they're struggling with these things? Is it just willpower? Are there other practical things that that people have complained of as to why they struggle with getting to this kind of focused period, whether it's during the weekday or weekends?
Yes, it's a really good question. So the answer is pretty short because we've kind of covered it already, and I reiterated it at the beginning of today's session. It comes down to your imagination, your conception. When something is so important in your mind, then it becomes inescapable for you. And so the real question is, how do you make it inescapable? And that's what we've been speaking about in the first two sessions, to really understand the nature of world making, to understand the nature of how we as human beings imagine our futures. And when you understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, then it's going to be non-negotiable. Then the second part of it does become about willpower. It does become about, this is my life, this is what I'm doing. And as I said, unfortunately, in these series of sessions, I can't really tackle the willpower side because I'm trying to tackle the knowledge side. But we can do that another time. We can look at some of these blockages. And I mentioned a couple of them in passing today. One of them is overloading, this idea that you have just too much going on in your life. This also comes down to conceptual reorientation as well, because you may think there's nothing wrong with that. You might think that's very normal because you just take your environment as the norm and you see everybody else doing that as well. So the idea that you have to trim everything back to basics and really prioritize what you put into your life may be a bit of a novel idea, right? But just tying to that, in case there aren't any other questions, I'll kind of end on an important point for me, which is Ramadan serves this purpose for me because Ramadan, when people come to January, what's the common language you hear from people? What's your resolution for the next year, right? Ramadan is the month of resolution. I'll give you two practical ways in which that happens. Number one, when I come to Ramadan, I don't say to myself, you know what? In Ramadan, I'm going to up my Quran. In Ramadan, I'm going to up my prayers. It might seem sacrilegious, right? But I don't say this to myself. These are things that people used to do, and people might turn around and say to me, well, how dare you not? Because Imam Malik used to, and Imam Shafi. Well, you don't know what Imam Malik and Imam Shafi was doing outside of Ramadan. For them to be able to cordon everything off and just focus completely on Quran and extra prayers is great for them, because do you know how they were living their lives outside of Ramadan? We are not living those lives outside of Ramadan. So again, we need to prioritize in better ways. This is what I actually recommend to people, and it is somewhat unorthodox, but I'll tell you, and you can weigh it up in your own scale. What I think Ramadan is, we've been saying this all the way through, a month in which Allah is teaching us how to sacrifice. So use it to your advantage. You've had those goals, these things radical changes that you needed to make. Ramadan is the month that's going to allow it for you. So what would be better? At the end of Ramadan, you've completed 2 extra cycles of Quran without understanding because you upped your Quran, or you actually come away having memorized 4 surahs of Quran that you then recite for the rest of the year, Surah Mulk every night and Surah Sajda before you go to bed, Surah Yasin in the morning, and some other of the oft-recited praiseworthy surahs which are part of the Sunnah. You tell me now, what's greater currency? That you've added 2 extra cycles of Quran just as a sporadic extra element in the year, or you've come away with something which has now become part of your habit routine for all 12 months and for the rest of your life? You tell me. Do you understand? So this is what I ask people to do. Before Ramadan begins, make yourself a 30-day action plan for something important that you've always been meaning to do, haven't been able to do, but know that Ramadan is going to give you the contour to be able to do it. It could be a 30-day intensive of Arabic, because the real burden for me has been, I just need an intensive, and then I'll be able to go into a more measured, long-term journey with Arabic. But when is this intensive ever going to come? Ramadan is going to come. Oh, I don't read. I need an intensive where I'm going to go through 4 or 5 books in a period of weeks, and it's going to really launch my reading career. Well, when is that going to come? Never, except when what happens? Ramadan happens, because now you have the himma, you have the energy you can read. This is the first thing. And the second thing is at the end of Ramadan, this is before Ramadan begins, the resolution for the month. What are you going to do? That's going to be almost like a catapult for the rest of your life that you're going to do. And then at the end side of Ramadan, in the last 10 days, as we're approaching now, how am I now going to actively secure that goal? So now what's the resolution for the rest of the year? I've done these, I've made these sorts of changes, I've gathered these sorts of outcomes, and now I'm going to look at how I'm going to maintain them going forward. This for me is far better than upping certain things just coincidentally, a bit prayer here. You probably still end up, the thing is, because you probably still end up doing those things anyway. Don't need to make those active intentions, because who's not going to want to go and pray Tarawih in the masjid when there's life recitation? Who's not going to want to perform some extra prayers or read some extra Quran? Those things will happen by the by. Okay, so I think that's enough because I've run over. Jazakumullah khair. I look forward to catching everyone for my session next Sunday. Please do keep up with all the sessions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.